Rain fell in thick sheets across the darkened alley, masking the distant honks and echoing footsteps of the city. A dim street lamp flickered above the crumbling brick walls, casting trembling shadows over overflowing trash bins. The yellow silhouette of Kareem's taxi appeared through the curtain of water, its wipers struggling against the storm. Kareem, a weary middle-aged Pakistani man with tired eyes and a rough beard, muttered curses about the late shift. Just as he reached for his thermos, a figure stumbled from the shadows and slammed a hand against the taxi window. Startled, Kareem flinched, his hand moving instinctively toward the door lock. The man outside was drenched, his expensive clothes torn, blood and grime mixed into the rain trickling down his face. "Please, I need help," the man choked out. Kareem lowered the window an inch. "You high or something?" The man's voice trembled. "No, I was attacked. They took everything. I need to get to Silver Grove Estate." Kareem squinted. That name didn't fit this man's ragged appearance. But something in his voice made Kareem hesitate. Kareem hesitated only a second longer before unlocking the doors with a reluctant sigh. The drenched man yanked the door open and collapsed into the back seat, dripping rainwater onto the worn fabric. "Silver Grove, right?" Kareem asked, punching it into his ancient GPS system. "Yes," the man whispered between shivers. "My name is Elias Vance." Kareem froze, mid-type. That name rang loud. CEO of Vance Technologies. But this guy. He looked nothing like the glossy magazine photos. "You serious?" Kareem asked. Elias nodded faintly, his lips cracked. "They ambushed me. My own coup. Took my ID, my phone, everything. I barely escaped." Kareem's eyebrows rose. "You look like you crawled out of a sewer." Elias gave a dry, humorless chuckle. "Feels like I did. Someone I trusted tried to kill me. I have no one left." The gravity in his voice, the fear trembling beneath it, felt too real to fake. The cab crept along wet streets, city lights smearing across the windows like paint. Elias leaned his head back, wincing. Boardroom betrayal, months in the making. My coup, Mason Creel. He created fake accounts, bribed legal teams, rewrote my story. Then he made his move. Kareem glanced at him through the rearview mirror. "He needed you out of the picture." Elias nodded grimly. "Dead, to be exact. He staged a scandal to justify everything, told the media I fled overseas. But I was trapped at my lakeside cabin. They tried to burn it down." Kareem sucked in a breath. "And you survived that?" Elias looked out the window. "Barely. I ran through the woods for miles." Kareem muttered, "Dan, you're like one of those CEO action heroes now." Elias gave a bitter laugh. "I don't feel like one. I just want to survive." Kareem's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. This was more than some mugging. "So what's your move when we reach Silver Grove?" he asked. Elias coughed, voice hoarse. "Analyze. My goddaughter, she's inside. She knows the truth. If I can just talk to her, she'll believe me, and she has influence." Kareem nodded slowly, watching red lights blur through the windshield. "And what if she's asleep?" Elias gave a crooked smile. "She won't be. She has this sense, ever since she was a kid. She can tell when something's wrong." Kareem glanced at him through the mirror. "You better hope she still cares enough to act." Elias whispered, "She's the only family I have left." As the taxi turned off the main road, massive iron gates loomed into view, flanked by stone lions and high hedges. Kareem slowed to a stop. Two security guards emerged from a sleek booth, hands near their holsters. "Don't move," one barked. Elias shoved the door open and stumbled out, arms raised. "Please, I'm Elias Vance. I need to speak to Analyze. I'm her godfather." One guard pulled a radio. The other advanced slowly. The tension thickened until a female voice crackled from the intercom beside the gate. "Let them through." The guards froze. "Ma'am?" one said. "Let them in," she repeated. The gate creaked open. Kareem watched it part with wide eyes. This night just keeps getting stranger, he muttered, shifting into drive. The taxi rolled down a winding driveway flanked by ancient trees and sculpted gardens, mist rising from the damp earth. Silvergrove Estate loomed into view, a colossal manor of stone and glass, regal yet modern, with lights glowing behind tall arched windows. Kareem slowed to a stop near the grand staircase. The front doors opened, and Annalise Vance stepped out, barefoot in a silk robe, her hair damp, eyes sharp. Elias staggered from the cab. "Annalise," he rasped. She rushed forward, catching him as he nearly collapsed. "God, Elias, you're hurt." He clutched her arm. "Mason, he tried to kill me." Annalise glanced at the gods. "Get my medical kit, and lock the perimeter, no one in or out." Kareem stepped back, unsure if he should leave. She turned to him. "You brought him here?" He nodded. "Thank you," she said softly. "Stay close. You may have just saved a man's life, and a company." Inside the estate, Kareem followed behind awkwardly as Annalise led Elias through polished corridors. Marble floors gleamed beneath crystal chandeliers. A maid hurried past, bringing blankets and antiseptic. Annalise guided Elias into a sunken lounge and laid him gently on a velvet couch. "What happened?" she asked. Elias spoke between shallow breaths. "Mason forged everything. He made it look like I fled after laundering money. He's taking the company public, without me." Annalise's eyes darkened. "I knew something was off. I haven't heard from you in weeks." Elias gripped her hand. "He planted false records. Killed my lawyer. I barely got away." Kareem stood by the doorway, overwhelmed by the wealth around him. It felt like a world he had only seen in films. Yet here he was, standing in the middle of it because he didn't ignore a stranger's knock. Annalise stood abruptly. "He's trying to erase you, Elias. I checked the shareholder database yesterday. Your name was gone." Elias nodded weakly. "He controls the board now, but I still have backup drives. Proof. They're hidden in the Eastwood vault." She turned sharply. "That's across the city." Elias coughed violently. "I can't go." "But Kareem?" Both turned to face the driver. Kareem blinked. "Me?" Elias gritted his teeth. "I trust you. No one knows you. You're invisible in the best way. Take my signet ring, it opens the vault." Kareem hesitated, glancing between the two. "This is insane," he said. "You know that, right?" Annalise stepped forward. "You'll be protected. I'll send you with one of my security agents, but we need that drive or everything's lost." Kareem exhaled. "Then let's go before I change my mind." Minutes later, Kareem stood beside a sleek black SUV, gripping the ring tightly. The security agent assigned to him, a stoic man named Rowan, double-checked his holster before nodding. "Eastwood Vault is a 20-minute drive. Stay close." Kareem nodded. The SUV roared down the wet roads, headlights slicing through the darkness. Inside, Kareem stared at the ring, engraved with a phoenix crest, wondering how the hell he ended up in a corporate thriller. Rowan's voice broke the silence. "You're either brave or stupid, maybe both." Kareem smirked. "I'm just a guy who didn't drive away." Rowan gave the faintest grin. "That's the most dangerous kind." The city skyline came into view. Somewhere among those glittering towers was the proof that could restore a fallen king, or bury him forever. They reached the vault, a nondescript concrete building with biometric locks and private security cameras. Rowan stepped out first, scanning the perimeter. "Clear." Kareem followed, heart pounding. The ring fit perfectly into the panel beside the heavy metal door. With a hiss, it opened to reveal a sterile interior lined with deposit boxes. Kareem stepped inside, feeling the weight of silence. Rowan watched the entrance. Kareem searched, finally spotting a drawer marked Eva 3 Didual. He unlocked it with the ring, pulling out a black flash drive encased in titanium. Just as relief hit, a red light blinked on the far wall. "We triggered something," Rowan growled. Kareem shoved the drive into his pocket. Then, let's move. Sirens began to wail in the distance. They sprinted to the SUV, tires screeching as Rowan reversed into the night. The SUV sliced through the night, every bump in the road echoing through Kareem's bones. Rowan kept one hand on the wheel and the other on his firearm. "They'll come after us now," he muttered. Kareem clutched the flash drive like it might vanish. "You think they're tracking us?" Rowan nodded grimly. The vault was off-grid, but triggering that alarm, it's a beacon. Kareem stared out the window, neon signs blurring past. "I was supposed to just finish a shift tonight." Rowan smirked. "You still might, if we survive." Ahead, traffic slowed. A black SUV blocked the road. "Hold on," Rowan said, pulling hard left. Tires squealed as they veered into an alley. Gunshots rang out behind them, pinging off metal dumpsters. Kareem ducked, heart thundering. This wasn't a getaway. It was war. They careened through a labyrinth of alleys until they lost the tail. Rowan pulled into a dim parking garage beneath an old hotel. "We lay low here," he said. Kareem leaned against the concrete wall, breath ragged. "Why is this flash drive so important?" Rowan pulled out a phone and scanned the device. "Because it proves Elias never laundered anything. Shows the bank trails, internal sabotage, off-the-books accounts, all traced back to Mason." Kareem exhaled slowly. "Then why not go public?" Rowan locked eyes with him. "Because Mason controls 3 news outlets and half the police force. We need to get this into safe hands. Someone who can't be bought." Kareem glanced at the horizon beyond the garage. "And where do we find that kind of person?" Rowan smirked. "She's waiting at the estate." Back at Silver Grove, Annalise paced in the grand foyer, her phone pressed to her ear. "No, we need Judge Callahan. He's old school. He'll listen." Her assistant on the other end confirmed the meeting. She turned to Elias, now resting on a chaise, color slowly returning to his face. "We have one shot. I'll present the drive and file a private injunction before Mason leaks anything else." Elias sat up weakly. "What about Kareem?" Annalise nodded. "He's on his way back. He did his part. Now it's our turn." Elias smiled faintly. He didn't hesitate. "Reminds me of you when we were younger." Annalise's expression softened. "He's got something we forgot a long time ago. Nothing to lose." Kareem and Rowan arrived at the estate just before dawn. The sky was smeared with pink and indigo as guards opened the gates without a word. Kareem stepped out, exhausted, flash drive still clenched in his hand. Annalise met him on the steps. "You made it." Kareem handed her the drive. "Hope it's worth it." She offered a tired smile. "It's everything." Rowan whispered something to one of the guards and vanished into the shadows. Annalise turned to Kareem. "Get some rest. You've earned it. Tonight you'll come with us to the Royal Gala." Kareem blinked. "Gala?" She nodded. "The Crown Prince is hosting, and we need allies." He chuckled, shaking his head. "I don't own a tux." Annalise laughed softly. "You will by tonight." The estate staff transformed a guest room into Kareem's sanctuary. A fresh tuxedo lay across the bed. Tailors buzzed around him, fitting and pressing. He stood awkwardly, watching himself in the mirror. "I look like I parked the limo, not arrived in one," he joked. One of the stylists chuckled. "By the end of tonight, you'll look like you own the ballroom." Downstairs, Annalise reviewed files, Elias slowly suiting up. The gala wasn't just an event. It was a stage. The Crown Prince's endorsement could destroy Mason or solidify his grip forever. Kareem stepped out of the room, clean-shaven, fitted in black and silver. Elias whistled. "You clean up nice." Kareem smiled nervously. "Let's hope I can dance in these shoes." The Royal Gala shimmered under moonlight at the Crescent Pavilion, an architectural marvel carved from alabaster and glass. Dignitaries, royals, and elite guests glided through the entrance in jewels and tailored suits. Annalise, draped in a dark emerald gown, led Elias and Kareem up the velvet steps. Kareem moved stiffly, awed by chandeliers suspended like stardust and a red carpet lined with photographers. "Smile," Elias whispered, "even if you don't feel it." Inside, the atmosphere was heady. Golden string music filled the air, champagne towers glistened, and political conversations crackled beneath the elegance. The crown prince stood at the center of it all. Young, powerful, sharp-eyed. Kareem whispered, "That's him?" Elias nodded. "He's our only shot at justice. He detests corporate corruption." Kareem straightened his cuffs. "Then let's give him something to detest." Inside the gala, Kareem felt like an intruder in a dream. Lavish chandeliers cast golden halos, waiters passed trays of caviar and crystal, and violins hummed through the vast hall. He clutched a flute of sparkling water, watching Elias and Annalise speak with high-ranking officials. The crown prince made his way toward them, surrounded by advisors. Kareem's pulse quickened. Annalise bowed with grace. "Your Highness," she said, "I bring evidence of a coup with advanced technologies. Lives were risked retrieving it." The prince raised an eyebrow. Elias handed him the drive. "This holds everything," he said. "Fraud, embezzlement, murder. All traced to Mason Creel." The prince gestured to a royal aide. "We will review this tonight." His gaze landed on Kareem. "And who is this?" Annalise smiled. "The man who made it possible." As the gala continued, whispers spread. Screens were brought into a private chamber for an immediate viewing. Kareem stayed outside with a glass in hand, listening to guests speculate. "Did you hear about the Vance scandal? They say someone tried to kill the CEO." Kareem shifted uncomfortably. Then a familiar face entered, Mason Creel. Tall, suave, flanked by media handlers. Kareem's breath caught. Annalise emerged, her eyes sharp. "He's trying to spin it. If the prince sees him first, he'll muddy everything." Kareem nodded slowly. "Then stall him." He slipped into the corridor toward the viewing room. Inside, royal analysts pored over encrypted files. The prince leaned forward. "This is overwhelming." Elias stood behind him, grim but steady. Kareem appeared in the doorway. "He's here," he said. "Mason's here." The crown prince stood tall. "Bring him in," he commanded. Moments later, Mason Creel entered, all arrogance and charm. "Your Highness," he said smoothly, bowing. "I believe there's been some confusion." Elias stood beside the prince. "There's no confusion," he said. "Only proof." Mason's smile faltered as images from the flash drive appeared on the projection wall. Emails, transaction records, falsified documents, a map of the cabin fire. The room fell silent. "These could be faked," Mason argued. The prince held up a hand. "Then you won't mind a forensic investigation. Until then you are suspended from all corporate activity." Guards moved forward. Mason's mask cracked for a split second before he composed himself. Kareem exhaled from the back of the room. Justice was breathing down the neck of the untouchable. Mason was escorted out under silent stares. Elias sagged against the wall, the burden finally beginning to lift. Annalise embraced him tightly. The crown prince approached Kareem, extending a hand. "I'm down. You acted with courage few in your position would. Tonight you are not just a guest. You are an ally." Kareem shook his hand, overwhelmed. "I just drove the car," he said. The prince smiled and changed the direction of an empire. The ballroom returned to music, the tension melting into applause. Kareem was handed a champagne glass, people suddenly clapping him on the back, thanking him. But his eyes searched for one thing, Elias. They locked gazes, and Elias raised his glass with quiet gratitude. Kareem returned the gesture, realizing this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. By morning, news of Mason's downfall blanketed headlines. Coup exposed advanced technologies, CEO survives murder plot, and anonymous hero delivers evidence to crown. Kareem sat on a marble bench in the estate garden, sipping tea under soft dawn light. He felt displaced, caught between exhaustion and surreal disbelief. Elias approached in a crisp blazer, his wounds bandaged, his eyes brighter. "It's over," Elias said, sitting beside him. "They're freezing Mason's assets and issuing a warrant." Kareem nodded slowly. "So what happens now?" Elias smiled. "We build, publicly, and we clear my name in court." Kareem raised an eyebrow. "And me?" Elias chuckled. "You're not going back to that taxi, Kareem. You've seen too much." Kareem smirked. "Maybe I'll drive a limo instead." Elias laughed, and for a moment, peace replaced the storm. Later that day, a press conference was held on the estate's west lawn. Journalists gathered in clusters, cameras poised. Elias stood before a podium, flanked by Annalise and Kareem, the latter clearly uncomfortable under the spotlight. "Last night," Elias began, "truth overcame corruption. With the help of ordinary citizens and extraordinary loyalty, we've exposed a betrayal of the highest order." Flashes erupted from every angle. "This man beside me," Elias continued, "risked his life with no promise of reward. He reminded me of something I forgot. Integrity isn't tied to status." Kareem shifted, awkwardly nodding. Reporters surged with questions. Annalise leaned in. "You did good, Kareem." His voice was barely audible. "I didn't think I belonged here." She smiled. "You redefined what here means." That evening, Kareem walked the halls of the estate alone. Portraits of industrialists and innovators lined the walls, names he'd only ever seen on magazine covers. A butler approached. "Mr. Vance has requested you in the study." Kareem entered the dim room where Elias sat beside a glowing fireplace. "I want to offer you something," Elias said, pushing a folder forward. Inside were documents bearing Kareem's name. A position, executive driver and head of private logistics, full clearance, full benefits, and a future. Kareem stared. "I'm not a suit wearer." Elias smiled. "You're more than that. You're loyal." Kareem closed the folder gently. "If I say yes, I'm all in." Elias nodded. "That's what I'm counting on." Days later, Kareem stood on a balcony overlooking the city from Elias's corporate penthouse. The skyline shimmered under twilight. He wore a tailored suit, his own this time, cut to fit like armor. His ID badge now bore a title, Director of Logistics. Behind him, Annalise stepped out, holding 2 glasses. "Still feel like a taxi driver?" she asked. He laughed. "Some days, but I like the view." She handed him a glass. "Tomorrow's the shareholder meeting. You'll be introduced." Kareem raised his brows. "That still sounds like your world, not mine." She leaned against the railing. "You saved it. That makes it yours too." They toasted quietly as the lights below flickered on like stars. As night deepened, Kareem sat alone in his suite, the tux from the gala hanging neatly beside his new suits. He picked up his old driver's cap from the side table, creased, worn, full of stories. He ran a thumb along its edge, then set it gently into a drawer. He looked at his reflection in the mirror, not as an imposter, but as a man transformed. His phone buzzed, an incoming message from Elias. "You changed everything. Sleep well, my friend." Kareem smiled and replied, "I just answered a knock." He stood, turned off the lights, and let the silence cradle him. The journey had been wild, dangerous, surreal, but it led him here, to belonging. The morning of the shareholder meeting arrived with overcast skies and a cool breeze sweeping over the city. Kareem sat in the back of a company car, wearing a new charcoal gray suit, glancing over notes Annalise had sent him. The vehicle pulled up to the Vance Technologies headquarters, a towering glass fortress glittering like a shard of light. Cameras were already gathering outside. As Kareem stepped out, the crowd murmured. Inside the lobby, employees watched him pass, whispering. He was a story now. Elias and Annalise waited by the elevator, both dressed sharply, calm and composed. Elias smiled as the doors opened. "You ready for the wolves?" Kareem smirked. Long as they don't bite. Analyze added, just speak the truth. That's what saved us before. It will again. The boardroom was cathedral-like. Long, glossy table, walls of glass revealing the skyline. Shareholders filled their seats, murmuring as Karim, Elias and Analyze entered. A hush fell. Elias stood. Before we begin, there's a guest whose testimony shaped the survival of this company. All eyes turned to Karim. He stood slowly, heart pounding. I'm not a businessman, he began. I'm a driver. I picked up a man who could have been left to die, but I didn't. And because of that, you now have the truth. He tapped a tablet connected to the screen. Images appeared, bank logs, Mason's directives, forged documents. Karim's voice was steady. I've learned that corruption hides in luxury and title, but it fears ordinary people who do what's right. The room was silent. Then, applause. As the meeting broke, shareholders filed out in contemplative silence. Elias placed a hand on Karim's shoulder. You didn't just speak, you led. Karim shook his head, overwhelmed. I just said what I saw. Analyze joined them, her phone buzzing with media alerts. They're already calling you, the man who drove the truth home. Karim rolled his eyes. Catchy. Elias smirked. Accurate. Outside, reporters swarmed the building, begging for comment. Karim turned to Elias. You ever gonna drive again? Elias laughed. Only if you're in the passenger seat. For the first time, Karim laughed freely. The pressure of secrets and survival finally lifted. That evening, Karim visited the old alley where it all began. The same broken bricks, the same flickering lamp. He stood near the spot where Elias had knocked on his window, staring at the puddles shimmering in moonlight. It felt like a different life, like a story someone else had lived. But the scars, the memories, and the bond it formed were real. Karim whispered, You never know who you're saving when you stop to listen. A breeze carried the smell of rain again, just as it had that night. He turned and walked away, not to escape, but to carry what he'd gained forward. Every life-altering journey starts with a decision. His was not to drive away. Back at the estate, a celebration unfolded beneath twinkling lights and soft jazz. The garden bloomed under lanterns, guests laughing with glasses raised. Karim stood to the side sipping his drink, watching the Vance family mingle with dignitaries and friends. Analyze joined him, smiling. You disappeared after the meeting. He shrugged. I had to revisit something. Remind myself why this matters. She nodded. You've changed a lot. Karim looked around. So have you. From across the garden, Elias raised a glass in Karim's direction. The driver turned executive lifted his in return. In a world driven by power, one man's choice to stop and help had rewritten the future. And now, surrounded by light and life, he finally felt seen. Weeks later, Karim stood outside the Royal Archive. The same flash drive now sealed in a glass case, labeled Civil Integrity Artifact, Exhibit 1. School children filed past with wide eyes. One boy pointed, whispering, That's the taxi guy, right? Karim chuckled under his breath. He wasn't used to being part of history. Analyze stood beside him, arms folded. They asked to display it permanently. First of its kind. Karim nodded. Funny. It used to sit in my coat pocket. She smirked. Now it's a symbol. He glanced at the case again. Of what? Tech espionage? She shook her head. Of what happens when an ordinary man answers a call no one else hears. Toohey. The crowd buzzed behind them. But Karim was still. He didn't need more noise. The silence of doing what's right had always been enough. That afternoon, Karim returned to the estate where final preparations for Elias's reinstatement ceremony were underway. He entered the grand hall to find Elias pacing, rehearsing a speech. Nervous? Karim teased. Elias looked up, grinning. You kidding? This is more terrifying than the kidnapping. Karim laughed. Well, this time, no one's trying to set you on fire. Elias chuckled. That we know of. Elias entered, holding cue cards. He's ready. Just don't joke about fire in the speech. Kareem stepped back, observing the reunion of a fractured empire. The halls, once echoing with panic, now hummed with restoration. He felt no jealousy, just pride. He had helped build this moment, not for power but for peace. The ceremony began under a twilight sky. Whoa! Journalists gathered, but this time they weren't there for scandal. They came for rebirth. Elias approached the stage, applause erupting. Months ago he began, I lost everything. Not just my position but my faith in the world around me. And then a taxi driver stopped his car. All heads turned to Kareem, standing near the steps. He reminded me that dignity is not in status, but in action. The audience rose in applause. Kareem's chest tightened. He hadn't sought this attention, but it came anyway. And for once it didn't feel heavy. Elias concluded, tonight, I reclaim my title. But I do so with a new truth. Greatness begins with grace. Later, Kareem walked the estate garden alone, his thoughts drifting between past and present. Fireflies blinked over trimmed hedges and marble fountains whispered in the stillness. Elias approached quietly. Everything's changing again, he said. Kareem nodded. Yeah, but this time, it's right. Elias handed him an envelope, a token of the board's appreciation, and mine. Kareem opened it. Inside was a deed. A small property under his name. Not a palace, but his. I don't know what to say. Elias smiled. You've earned roots, not just roads. Kareem looked up, eyes glistening. I guess I'm home then. In a world built on transactions, this was the first gift he couldn't measure in currency. Kareem stood once again behind the wheel, but not of a taxi. A sleek black luxury vehicle hummed beneath his touch, waiting at the gates of Silver Grove. Elias and Annalise approached, dressed for yet another royal invitation. Kareem stepped out, holding the door for them. Back where we started, Elias said. Kareem nodded. Only this time I know where we're going. Annalise smiled. You still drive like hell. He laughed. Only when it matters. As they pulled away, Kareem glanced into the rearview mirror, not to check traffic, but to remember. The alley, the rain, the man who knocked, and the choice to stop. Whoa! That choice had rewritten 3 lives. And as the estate disappeared behind them, so did the old Kareem. He was no longer just a driver. He was the engine of change.